Much testimony about the defendant's abuse of drugs and alcohol. Ultimately, this case was not just about addiction, a disease that haunts families across the United States, including Hunter Biden's family. This case was about the illegal choices defendant made while in the throes of addiction, his choice to lie on a government form when he bought a gun, and the choice to then possess that gun. It was these choices and the combination of guns and drugs that made his conduct dangerous. Second, no one in this country is above the law. Everyone must be accountable for their actions, even this defendant. However, Hunter Biden should be no more accountable than any other citizen convicted of this same conduct. The prosecution has been and will continue to be committed to this principle and to the principles of federal prosecution in carrying out its responsibilities. I want to thank the jury for their service. There are few civic responsibilities more important than jury service. 15 Delawareans came to court each day and performed their responsibilities in a professional and conscientious manner. We thank them. I want to thank Derek Hines, Leo Wise, and the entire special counsel team. I am so proud of this group of attorneys, agents, and litigation professionals. This is a difficult assignment. These folks have been working 7 days a week for the last couple months, litigating a variety of issues in district and appellate courts on two coasts. They have given their heart and soul to this work. They represent the best that public service has to offer. I am incredibly grateful. Finally, I want to thank Attorney General Garland for providing the support necessary to fulfill our mission, ensuring that we have the independence to appropriately pursue our investigations and prosecutions. As you know, we have additional trials and investigative work to be done, so I will not entertain questions at this time. Our work continues. Thank you for your consideration. Thanks.
We've heard from jurors asking, Mr. Weiss, would you entertain a plea deal in the California case? I'm a witness to Joe Biden being a criminal and Air Force.
We have been listening to Special Counsel David Weiss speak following the conviction of Hunter Biden on 3 federal gun charges. Weiss says ultimately the case wasn't about addiction. The case was about the illegal choices the defendant made while in the throes of addiction. He stressed nobody in the U.S. is above the law. Let's bring in CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson. So, Jessica, he said no one's above the law, but he also said that Hunter Biden should be no more accountable than anyone else. What did you take that to mean?
That they're not, in part, that they're not going to ask for 25 years, that this is not a situation where the prosecution wants to do something, frankly, unheard of and say, even though we have a first-time offender, even though this came as a standalone charge, we want to go for the maximum that's asked here. I think it's very important that what he was saying is, essentially, there's a floor and a ceiling, and we want to treat Hunter Biden the way we would treat anybody else. He's no more or less accountable. And again, I think it's hard to overestimate the importance of the public seeing that, in fact, Hunter Biden is receiving the same treatment as other people now that the conviction has come in. I know there is a perception that we have a two-tier justice system for so many reasons. Here's a very high-profile example and an opportunity for the system to work as it would with respect to any other defendant whose last name is not Biden.
The special counsel said it wasn't about addiction. It was the illegal choices the defendant made while in the throes of addiction. It sort of echoes some of what we heard during the prosecution's opening and closing. Why do you think that it was important for him to reiterate that today?
Well, I think in part that tracks the legal charges here, but in part what he wants to make clear is that he's not targeting somebody for being an addict, for struggling with addiction. If you just looked at jury selection, and you and I talked about this, many, many people in America know somebody who has or previously did struggle with addiction. And he's saying that's not what this is about. It's not about punishing him for what he was suffering at that time. It's about punishing him for taking illegal actions. And I think that's important because it, again, tells people this is about the rule of law. This is about looking at a federal statute and saying, not, we don't like him because he's a drug user, but he made false statements on forms. He possessed a gun when he should not have been able to.
You and I have discussed the appeals process and the fact that Hunter Biden's attorneys are likely to appeal, and that one of the central issues may be the constitutionality of the law in and of itself that Hunter Biden was tried for. Has that not been tested before? I mean, we talked about how this is rare insofar that it was just sort of a standalone case, but not unheard of.
Not unheard of, but this is so interesting. So back in 2022, the case that you know, a case called the Bruin case, the Supreme Court said, with respect to a New York law that said you need to show kind of a special reason why you would have to have a concealed carry permit to carry a gun outside of the home. The Supreme Court struck down that law. And in doing so, they created a new test for when gun control restrictions are constitutional. And that was a very restrictive test in the sense that it makes it much harder for states to implement gun control measures. It says we looked only at the text and the history and tradition in our country of any analogous gun control measures. Now, since that time, another court of appeals has looked at this federal law, but with respect to somebody who is using marijuana, not cocaine. And the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals said, I'm looking at that 2022 Bruin decision. I'm looking at this federal law that says known drug users cannot possess guns. And I don't think that it comports with the history and tradition test. So it can't apply, at least with respect to a former marijuana user. And so to your question of hasn't this been tested, in part, we're talking about a Supreme Court case that's almost exactly 2 years old. That's pretty new. And Court of Appeals who are just now interpreting that case with respect to this federal law.
Jessica Levinson taking us to class. Thank you so much. Let's go over now to CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang. She's outside the courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware. So Weijia, first of all, any activity out there that you're seeing since the court has adjourned?
Lindsay, it's actually incredibly quiet now that court has adjourned, especially in comparison to this morning and this entire trial. There are some comings and goings, but it's mostly just the media now camped out here. Of course, the Biden family has left. We know Hunter Biden left here holding hands with his mother and his wife. And so, no, there's not much going on physically here.
And we've heard from Hunter Biden himself, his attorney. We've also heard from the president about his son's conviction. What can you tell us about their comments?
Well, Hunter Biden and his team expressed disappointment. He issued a personal statement to say that he is more grateful today for the love and support I experienced this last week from Melissa, my family, my friends, and my community than I am disappointed by the outcome. He also went on to say that recovery is possible by the grace of God, and I am blessed to experience that gift one day at a time. His attorney, Abby Lowell, sent a separate statement that expressed the same, but added that they would pursue all the legal challenges available to Hunter. Of course, you and Jessica were just talking about the likelihood of an appeal and what they might argue in that. But, you know, certainly this is a tough day for the Biden family and for President Biden, who at any moment, Lindsay, is expected in Washington at the White House to make remarks about everything his administration is doing with regard to gun safety. He did issue a statement as well, very similar to what we have heard from him before, stressing that he is not only the president of the United States, but of course, a father as well. He said that he is proud of his son and the man that he is today. And he also, Lindsay, made reference to the fact that this is relatable to a lot of American families. President Biden said so many families who have had loved ones battle addiction understand the feeling of pride seeing someone you love come out on the other side and be so strong and resilient in recovery. And so while the president has not commented on this specific case, he has stressed from the very beginning that he fully supports Hunter Biden as he goes through the legal process.
Richa Jang, Jessica Levinson, thank you both so much for your analysis and reporting. We're going to take a short break. We have more coverage of today's verdict coming up. We are expected, as Richa was saying, to hear from President Biden today. He was scheduled to speak at an event on gun safety before the verdict dropped. Unclear if he will address the matter, but we will bring you his comments when he takes the stage. You're watching CBS News 24/7.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my two good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
It didn't seem like anything could happen, because nothing ever happens in East Palestine, but it did.
Authorities released toxic fumes from 5 derailed train cars.
Resident, please evacuate.
Acute bronchitis due to chemical fumes.
Did you ever have these problems before the derailment?
No, ma'am.
This neighborhood's not safe no more.
We can assure the community that there's not vinyl chloride entering their communities.
Then why are there so many people feeling these various symptoms of bloody noses or difficulty breathing, bronchitis?
That's a hard question to answer.
We're talking about one of the most blatant releases of a mixture of some of the most toxic chemicals that we've seen in America.
I feel like now I have a duty to warn other communities. If my daughter has to watch me die of cancer, at least it saves someone else.
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Dragon capsule here in space.
Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime.
Seeing the Earth from space, it was so exhilarating.
But the risks that come with the territory.
There have been 4 fatal accidents. That's a 1% fatal accident rate.
Might make you look before you launch.
If you had 1 out of 100 airplanes falling out of the sky, we'd have a public crisis.
Space tourism, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
The UN Security Council voted in support of the 3-phase ceasefire proposal outlined by President Biden. The plan aims to bring this months-long conflict to an end. Hamas said it welcomed the move, something Secretary Blinken called a, quote, hopeful sign.
14 votes for, no votes against. Something quite rare at the Security Council these days, and I think that speaks volumes, too.
CBS News foreign correspondent Chris Livesay joins us now from Tel Aviv. Chris, where do we stand on peace negotiations?
Hey, Lindsay. Well, Blinken